Remember that one time that Warner Bros. Spent millions of dollars trying to erase a mustache off of Henry Cavill's face? Well, I think Disney needs to do something similar, but in reverse. I think they desperately need to add a mustache to Harrison Ford's face. I'm not sure how this works. I'm not sure if he was the one that said, hey, I'll join, but I don't want to wear a mustache. I mean, obviously, he is a big, giant superstar, and he has the ability to be able to make those type of calls. Or if it was Disney just saying, hey, we're going to go in a completely new direction. Ross will not have a mustache this time around. But as a legitimate huge Hulk fan and somebody that has read multiple different comic book series or comic book runs featuring Red Hulk, I desperately need that mustache. I mean, look how beautiful he looks with a mustache. I mean, obviously his mustache won't be like animated and moving around, but you get the idea. This guy desperately needs a mustache. Let's not forget William Hurt wore a mustache proudly as Thunderbolt Ross. And I know I've mentioned this before, but just throwing it out there, it's painful to think that William Hurt was never like truly Red Hulk. He was always just Thunderbolt Ross, and then Harrison Ford jumps on, and then it's... Anyways, I've already rambled on and beat that conversation to death. Today I want to talk a little bit about the new trailer and just overall the project featuring the new Captain America movie. I know what people are thinking. They're just not as excited for any MCU projects, and they have a very good reason to have that mindset. Obviously, the last few films that have been released that are comic book based have just been absolute disasters, train wrecks. And as I said, this is not just for the DC cinematic universe, it's also for the MCU coming out of Disney, as well as anything coming from Sony. It's just been very, very disappointing. And I know a lot of people are excited for the new Deadpool film. Personally, I thought it was an okay film. There were some very, very good jokes at the beginning of the film. I think like the first 30 minutes were very, very entertaining, and then the film just completely fell off for me during the midsection and towards the end. Very disappointing. It's not a bad film. It's just a very mediocre film, at least in my personal opinion. I may do a review in the foreseeable future, but overall, I think the MCU is in shambles. And honestly, this entire video is me trying to sell the new Captain America film. I think that there's definitely potential for here, and it's not so much just the idea or the concept of them actually trying to piece together the MCU, unlike Deadpool, where it still feels like it's a Fox universe. They really didn't try to tie it in too much to the main MCU storyline. And this film gives me a lot of like Captain America Civil War vibes. Like there's something there. There's like a clash of ideals, a clash of morality, where it appears that Thunderbolt Ross here has like a very set standard for what is expected from superheroes. And it seems, at least in the trailer, that he's trying to extend an olive branch to Captain America. He's trying to bring him on board, maybe try to have him be like the face maybe of the US government. I'm not exactly sure what he was going for, but I still feel like there's some tension building up here, and this has been really a small little storyline that has been kind of played out throughout the MCU since Thunderbolt Ross was a character. We saw this a little bit in like Endgame and Infinity War, where Thunderbolt Ross was really trying to like put his foot down and stop superheroes from really intervening in anything big without their consent, or without them kind of having a hand in everything and how things were going to play out. And so that storyline kind of got pushed to the back burner, and I feel like it was a really missed opportunity to try to really explore that Red Hulk versus the MCU storyline, and I feel like they're starting to do this now. We don't know if there's going to be any like cameos, any team ups. We know that potentially the Winter Soldier or Bucky is going to be featured in this film. We know Captain America will be in there, but we just don't know if there will be anything else. There's been some rumors that potentially the Thunderbolts film might tie into the Captain America film somehow. And by the way, this is coming from somebody that is definitely not an Anthony Mackie fan, and the way that the Sam Wilson character was written throughout the entire MCU up to this point has really been cringe and extremely cheesy for me. I mean, that rant that he went on at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show was just absolute cringe. I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't bear it. It was just absolute nonsense, and it made no sense that he was preaching and telling how to run things. It just made no sense to me. But I don't think this movie is about necessarily Mackie or Harrison Ford or any of the actors that are going to portray their characters. I think this is more about the moral dilemma that's going on here. Like I said, very reminiscent of what we saw in the Captain America Civil War film, where Steve Rogers and other Avengers that joined his team essentially thought that the government should have no say in how they ran their operations, whereas in Iron Man, who, by the way, I'm personally a big Iron Man guy, so I may sound a little bit biased, but essentially Iron Man thought that there should be some constraints to how the Avengers handle things, and there should be people that kind of held them accountable, because at the end of the day, they shouldn't be necessarily like above the law or above government officials. And to be brutally honest, the Avengers aren't always the most ideal individuals to get to dictate these type of things. I mean, a lot of them are like criminals, or some of them might have ulterior motives. And so Iron Man's argument always made a little bit more sense to me, to an extent, obviously. But I feel like this is kind of what we're going to run into with the new Captain America movie. And by the way, there's a scene in there where Mackie or Sam Wilson tells Ross that he is not Steve Rogers. And I feel like he kind of is. I mean, he's making the exact same argument that Steve Rogers was. And so, but like I said, I think the ultimate objective here for Disney should be to establish all the characters that are going to go forward. But I genuinely feel like this is going to be a good movie. It's not just an action movie. It's not just a character-driven storyline. But as I said at the beginning, it's about a clash of ideals and morals and ethics, and I think that's one of the bigger talking points. At least at the beginning of the trailer, it seems like there's going to be a build-up. They may try to work together, and maybe it kind of works for, maybe half of the film or a good percentage of the film. I really hope that they build up the tension and they build up that showdown, which is obviously inevitable at this point. But most importantly, I think this film will establish what we will be seeing in the foreseeable future and what is the next big threat to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It has been quite some time since Thanos essentially got turned into dust, and since then I think the MCU has been in disarray, and the whole Jonathan Majors situation did not make this any easier. But I genuinely believe that this is the first film where we're going to get to see who the next villain is, what the next storyline will be. I think Red Hulk will be a character that maybe gets to reprise his role, but I just don't see him as like a universe-ending threat level at this point. Maybe this is the first film where we get to see Robert Downey Jr. in his whole Doctor Doom outfit. We don't even know if this is going to be a villain that they build up for, similar to how they did with Thanos, where he was appearing at like after credit scenes, and he had little cameos here and there and didn't really get to become a full villain until Infinity War. They could do something like that where they build him up for years and years. I feel like that's a route that they could potentially take with Robert Downey Jr.'s new role. So but as I said, I think all of this will clarify with the newest installment of Captain America. I will say the only thing that kind of worries me is the fact that they really haven't pushed a lot of merchandising. It hasn't really been marketed too well. And so I think there were like some McDonald's toys not too long ago that were being sold, but that was extremely early. I mean, the film was not even around the corner. Maybe that has to do with a lot of the delays. But aside from that, we haven't really seen that many t-shirts out, on display. We haven't really seen any cool like hats or any type of merchandising and action figure line for collectors, for adult collectors, or just action figures in general for children. And I think that's something that is very important when you're pushing a really big entry into the MCU like this is supposed to be. So that has me a little bit worried. I'm not sure if it's going to ramp up maybe at the end of the year. They're waiting for the holiday season to really kick into full gear, so that way they can maximize their full potential here. But like I said, all of that is up in the air. We just don't know exactly what's going on. I keep repeating myself, but I think the Jonathan Major situation, bringing Robert Downey Jr. on board, all of the reshoots that were happening behind the scenes. Although I will say Robert Downey Jr. being announced, I don't think is a new thing. I think that this was a plan that was working, that they were working on behind the scenes, and they only just recently revealed it to everybody in the public. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those reshoots that were happening for the newest Captain America film maybe featured Robert Downey Jr. playing a role, maybe not as the main villain, maybe just an after credit scene or a mention of him somewhere. And look, guys, nobody likes to make predictions or go out on a limb anymore. Everybody just is very cautious because they don't want to be called out by just people in general. But me personally, I'm dying on that limb. I'm going all out. I'm saying that this is the MCU film that brings the entire franchise back to its former glory. I think this is the foundational piece in which they start to kind of rebuild the MCU. I'm just excited. I'll be brutally honest with you guys. Maybe my optimism is misplaced here, but I'm genuinely excited to see what Kevin Feige and company have in store for us. But as always, this is just my personal opinion. And while sometimes opinions can be very wrong, very curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you guys believe this is the start of something amazing? Or do you feel that it's just going to be one of these, or I should say, yet another one of these subpar and disappointing entries? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys enjoy this type of rambling, definitely make sure to stay tuned. We do upload, or I should say, I'm going to try to upload a little bit more consistently. So enjoy the weekend, and if anything, go back and rewatch Infinity War for like the 20th time. Anyways, I know that's what I'll be doing. Stay safe out there. I'll see you guys in the next one.